Today is the second day of this May 1983 7-day retreat. Before getting into the Koan, just wish to say I'm sorry that we're somewhat slow on the meetings, what with rain and shoes, boots, and distances to walk, and maybe the bell not always being heard behind the hum of the radiator. Things have slowed down somewhat. Also, very often, first meetings take long. We're not here to rush things ahead. But I'm sorry that some people still haven't been to their first meeting. But maybe in the course of this retreat, the pace will pick up without feeling under pressure to pick it up. The Koan today is from the Hekiganroku, called Blue Cliff Records. Taking this particular koan from a selection by Sekida called Two Zen Classics. It's case number 7, and the title is Hogan's You Are Echo. It's a very interesting introduction to this, but usually these introductions don't necessarily hit the case. So maybe we'll take it up later or another time and just go right into the case, which says, a monk said to a teacher named Hogan, "My name is Echo. I ask you, what is the Buddha?" Hogan said, "You are Echo." Maybe of all the questions appearing in Zen Koan, Zen literature, what is the Buddha is the most frequent one. And there are 2 answers that are alike. We don't know what moved this monk to ask the teacher, what is Buddha? When do we ask such a question? Because Buddha, the word does not only refer to the historical Gautama Siddhartha Buddha, a man that sat under a tree, attaining enlightenment, teaching for some 50 years after that, saying at the time of his death, "Be a lamp unto yourselves. Take the truth for your refuge, take refuge nowhere else." The word Buddha, Sanskrit word, and has other meanings like awakening, enlightened wisdom, truth. So someone thoroughly fed up or discontented with his or her present life or way of living, living out of habitual moods and responses, unable to see clearly, confused, and yet not throwing in the towel, wondering whether there can be a different way of living altogether, whether there is something beyond this dismal life as this person sees it. Maybe growing up in a Buddhist civilization, hearing about the Buddha, his teaching of liberation from sorrow. What is Buddha? What is liberation? Or maybe, who is that man? What is he? What was he? We all know from our own experience how one can get involved with the life, the teaching, the personality, the pictures and images of a great religious teacher, a saint, a savior, a God or son of God. It can become the content, the fulfillment of one's life, to think of that, to worship that, to celebrate this person in ceremonies and rituals, to chant, repeat, and listen to what he said and wrote, to seek comfort and solace in that, and to belong to a group, small or large, local, national or international, of people who do the same thing in some way or other. It gives a sense of belonging, security, meaning to one's otherwise so empty, shallow, and meaningless, confused life. What is the Savior? Who is God? What is the divine, the sacred? And then devoting one's life to the idea of that, the image of that. And all that the imagination can produce and has produced about that. What is the Buddha? You are Echo. It cuts off that whole thing, doesn't it? One stroke. It cuts off this tremendous urge we have to emulate what we know about great religious figures or their disciples, descendants. Maybe their present-day adherents. This tremendous tendency to emulate, to have examples to follow, which can be done. Anyone can do it who has the urge to do it. Learn it, like a role. And become so good at it that other people may regard one as an advanced, religious, spiritual person, and try to emulate that person. It was just told to me the other day by someone who says, the people I'm with are so concerned to emulate certain people. Not look at themselves, not look at the people, what they are, really. But to emulate modes of behavior, ways of walking, talking, composing oneself, and so forth. That too is cut off. You're echo. Can I leave all that? I'm attached to it. It's my life. It's been my life. It's made my life glowing at times, meaningful, purposeful, ascending the path of development, of spiritual development toward these more and more developed examples of people. You're echo. Can I leave the other? And begin to look at the question, who in the world is echo? And how do I begin looking? Who am I? Again with ideas that I've learned, that have made a lot of comforting sense. I am Buddha. That's really what he means. What is the Buddha? You are echo, meaning you, echo, are the Buddha. Very comforting thought, an idea that I am Buddha. As I am. Then I can think of that and I don't have to look how I live from moment to moment. I can ignore that and instead find solace or intoxication in the idea of being Buddha. Having Buddha nature, having the divine spark in me. Hindu religion, it's having the Atman within myself, the divine soul which through generation after generation, through transmigration and development, eventually becomes Brahman, which is the universal divine principle, but is already here. I've got it. And it can be a comforting thought. You can say, no, I know I have it, I've seen it. Don't be fooled. Look, have you really seen it? Then what is it? Or is it a thought, a very convincing, cherished, comfortable, and very much shared thought? Hogan doesn't say that. Doesn't say, you are Buddha. He says, you're echo. Well, I start looking at echo, even leaving the name aside. Am I free to look? Or do I already have 1,000 ideas about who and what I am? A woman. I'm a woman. Not a man. Look at it. Just look for a moment. The ideas that go with that. I'm a woman. How women are raised. I have so many stereotyped ideas. But what a woman is like, what a man is like, what a girl is like and a boy is like. If you really start observing boys and girls and women, you see it, nothing fits. Absolutely no stereotyped image fits. You have to observe each individual human being, including yourself, without any ideas. And are you ready to put them aside? Are you? If you ask yourself that honestly and seriously, you may find how much investment you have in your prejudices and in your images about yourself. as a woman, as a man, as a middle-class person, daughter or son of a good family, professional family. I mean, maybe pride, maybe a reaction against it. As an American, a European, as a Christian, a Buddhist, an agnostic. If you're involved in politics, a Republican or Democrat, whatever. As an honest person, I'm honest. I don't lie. I don't cheat. You can't say that. You can't assume anything about yourself. Because all you can assume, all assumptions are about are images that have been drilled into you, how you ought to be. Or else, I will withdraw my love from you or my support. So there's a total confusion in most human beings about what they really are, because it's so instilled, fearfully instilled, with images of how we should be. It's too dangerous to look, because we may be slapped, spanked, or put into our room even though this doesn't apply anymore. It was such a dangerous and painful thing, this process of instilling. Good, bad, diligent, lazy. Talked about it yesterday, all the comparison that we've been exposed to, that we've slaved under, suffered under, or glowed under when we were on top. Several people in meetings say, I just want to be myself. Yeah, what is that, being just oneself? It's another ideal, to be oneself. What is it? Don't assume that you're yourself. What is it? All you can do is carefully, meticulously, with great interest, consuming interest, with a passion, observe how you react, talk, think, speak, from moment to moment. In the presence of people, in the presence of different people. All of a sudden, if we observe, we find we're so different with this crowd than with another crowd. Why? Many people bring up in meetings, people who delve into this work because they see no other way. There's no choice. They see that living the way one does is such a straitjacket. Straitjacket of these habitual, computed, programmed, compelled responses. One doesn't want to respond this way, one has resolved not to, and bang, one has put one's foot into it again. Hurt people, hurt oneself, a lot of stuff to wipe up, and the anger at having to wipe it up. Sometimes the impossibility of wiping it up. So, doing this, and finds how painful it is to put aside the ideal images of oneself, what other people have told one is, or what one has aspired toward being, which is all conditioned, to looking actually what takes place from moment to moment. So painful, some people say. I just don't want to do it. It's yuck. Yuck is a judgment. Somebody has told one that. It can be pain, it can be dangerous, it can be harmful, hurtful of people, but you have to look. Else you will never find out who is Echo, who is Etchel, who is John, Jane. Who are you? One reason we talk about this a lot in meetings, that it's so painful to look at oneself, is that one is immediately identified with what one sees. And then the fear of it, a fear of being that way, me being that way. Whereas in truth, what is looked at is the conditioned human mind, which is shared throughout the world, north, east, south, west. It's not different. Differences there are, and they're very superficial, but fundamentally human beings are caught in fear, in want, in hope, in rivalry, and in a tremendous need and yearning to be loved. Not so much a yearning to love, but to be loved. To give reassurance that one is all right. And a feeling of protectedness, safety. Things that are brought up most frequently in meetings, it has already happened at least 3 times on this first day, is anger. Getting in touch with anger. And one abhors it, one hates oneself, one is angry with oneself for being angry. Is it possible to witness an upsurge of anger and not be angry about it? Meaning not to divide oneself over it. And to the one judging what is being observed, what is being witnessed. Because the one who judges, as this one person pointed out, being angry at the anger, the one who judges is the anger. There's no two. There's only anger, and then it's split into, I don't like it, I shouldn't be this way. Bringing up all the images of how one should be. And therefore the anger is never really completely, fully entered into, seen, observed, allowed to show itself. Which does not mean expressing it, because there's no energy left for that if there's looking at it without any judgment. Judgment's already escaped. Feels a little less guilty if one judges this stuff, but it's the same thing. One person mentioned arriving at the retreat already in misery, having lived in misery and confusion before the retreat started for several weeks, arriving here, not really wanting to be here after getting here, and angry with himself over that. Angry at the other people who seem to be so much into it, sitting so much straighter, so much more with it. And then angry a teacher talking about people arriving with joy. Yeah, that can really make you angry. I can understand that. Actually, as these words came out, I anticipated trouble. One sees a few people, and it's so beautiful to get out of the stuffy car, fresh air and the wind and the sun coming through the clouds, that blinking lake, seeing each other again, embracing. It doesn't mean one is living in joy. So anger is there. What of it? I'm not making slight of it in any way, but making light of it. What is it? Not what is the Buddha in his peacefulness, in his lovingness, in his total absence of anger, because he's always smiling. But who am I? What is Echo? What is here? This instant. Why do I get angry? It's all right to reflect on this, to take time out. Out from what? Some people say this. Can I take some time out to talk about a personal problem? Time out from what? We look at something, open it up, look at it, question it. Then there's no time. Because people in the waiting line may get cold. I don't know, is it cold there? Hope there's a heater. I think there is. So why do I get angry? What are the ingredients of it? I must look at them very carefully so I understand this thing. Not judge it, not condemn it or control it. Out of that comes nil understanding. One person came in and just, it overflowed, this madness, anger and sorrow at herself, always wanting. She said that's what it is, it's always wanting and not getting. Seeing others seemingly get what one cannot get. It arouses anger or other similar fears. The word is not the important thing. Envy. Self-deprecation. Or someone else doing something wrong. I told him or her to do it this way, and no, he or she didn't do it that way. I get angry. Why? Can't I just see something was done wrong and we'll try to correct it? Maybe I can even help, or maybe not. But there's anger. It comes up. Does it have to come up if you see it right away? It doesn't. But most of the time we're not in the seeing business, we're in the expressing business. Because that gives good feelings of release. Anger is a good physical feeling, because a lot of stuff happens when anger is triggered. Chemistry. Body chemistry which beckons, yearns for release. And the shouting or the stomping, pounding a door or a table, that releases physical tension and gives good feelings. Look at it, whether it isn't so. And then, of course, bad feelings afterwards and new bodily reactions of tension, hating oneself for it or hating the others. There's no end to it. It's not a release to end all tensions. It's a release to create new tensions. even though it's pleasurable at the moment. There's no condemnation in this, please. And when you look at it yourself, trace out, detect the condemnation and put it aside, because it blurs the vision. You can't see with it. And you're only preoccupied with your lofty moral ideas which were pounded into you, or which you adopted yourself for guidance. But ideals cannot give you guidance. True guidance comes out of seeing what you're doing. Seeing the mess, seeing the pain of it, the danger of it, the hurtfulness, the harmfulness, the divisiveness of it. When you see that, out of that comes guidance. I don't know what the right word is. A feeling of responsibility for what one does. To look. To look with passion and compassion. Here or there, it doesn't matter. It is one human mind that is being looked at. Not mine or yours. Another thing that is brought up frequently, looking into oneself, what is seen is confusion. What is confusion? When we say, I'm confused, what do we mean by that? Does it mean I'd like to do this, but I also would like to do that, and I don't know which of the two to choose? Or I would love to do this, but I know I shouldn't do that. Yet someone else is doing it. I'm confused. In confusion, isn't there always a choice of what to do? And in that choice is our standards, images of what should be done. Look at it when you say, I'm confused. Whether you're dealing with images and ideas of what ought to be done, or whether you're looking directly what is the state of affairs this moment, here and there. It is not so difficult to sort out the facts if one can see what is idea. Is it difficult to sort idea from fact? It is if we have lived our life long in ideas and confused them with facts. Thought we are the way our mother told us we are, or our teachers. They told us what they want us to be like, but they told us this is what we are. And when we did something that didn't fit the bill, or was angry or naughty, we were punished or put into the room and said, this is not Echo. Echo is a good boy. But if you put your mind to it, if you need to sort this out, you can. It's not difficult. It's simple. Put away all ideals you have about yourself. All ideals about what you think you ought to do or should do according to what people say or books say, teachers say. And look what needs to be done. Or look at your incapacity to do it. And what's blocking. Then It's not confusion. You may not know. You really may not know what to do. It's not a bad state to be in, not to know what to do, rather than acting out of conditioned ideas. Because if you don't know what to do, you may stop for a moment and wait. Not when the house is burning. You don't stop for a moment, you get out. Or you push this button there, this lever on the fire extinguisher. But usually those situations are not our problem. At that moment we're quite clear because we're not thinking. We have no choice. We have no choice. There's tremendous energy which is usually bound up in choosing, deciding, pro and con. I'm not saying that one should never choose and decide pro and con. There are situations where you have to weigh different pieces of land, property, or whatever, architects' plans. We're not talking about this right now. What should I do? People say that in meeting. I don't know what to do. Good. Question right into this not knowing. Do you really mean it, that you don't know what to do? Or do you want me to tell you what to do? That's often the case. People will say, can you tell me what to do? Another person telling you what to do? One more? Haven't you had enough of it? You are Echo. He doesn't say you can do it, but maybe it's implied in there. It must be implied because every human being can see and can look. If you want to, if you have to, if you have no other choice, then there is energy to do it. Maybe big or little. Doesn't matter. It needs not to. If you start measuring, you waste energy on the measure. He has more energy than me. I can hear it. He may just have a pretense of energy. You don't know. Or maybe you have an inkling, because you have pretended to be energetic at times, haven't you? One can do it. The role can generate energy. Because then you have something you can sneak into. And gives you some energy. Because you don't have to not know what to do. And yet not knowing what to do next can be a wellspring of energy to gather in not knowing. That's what Hu or Mu is about for those people who work on that. I don't know. I really don't know. And I'm not waiting for her to tell me. She won't. Hu. Mu. What is it? Or if the word is too much for you, and there's those people who are working not with a word, just questioning, meaning not knowing, looking, listening, opening up to what is, and on guard not to get stuck in anything that feels good, because then immediately a thing is made out of it. A little ritual, a little ceremony. One person mentioned that to me once. I don't know if I've ever talked about it. A person was in a sesshin, in a retreat, and all of a sudden confronted with an incredible fear, terror. And I was just watching what happened. He found himself establishing a bath ritual. And he said, every day I did exactly the same thing, the way I turned the water on, took the soap, the whole thing from then on was ritualized, and I had to do it that way. And at that moment, I felt no terror. And he said, "What? I wasted the whole retreat." That's were his words. So when fear comes up, which is the other thing that is mentioned all the time, fear, either fear of I don't know what, or more specifically, fear of loneliness, of being abandoned, of being alone. How do you meet it? Do you meet it by climbing into what I usually call the TV room? Fantasy about pleasant things, pleasant people, people you love. Thinking of them so you don't have to face this terror of being alone. You can do that, but you haven't faced it and it lingers on. It has not been resolved. Because you have not tested being alone. What it really means. One has an idea of it. And the idea is nurtured by images of the things and people one would rather like to be with than sit facing a wall in moist, damp darkness at night. In the day it's brighter. And yet it can feel moist, damp and dark at a moment like that. Not even the lake beckons. One could care less. Will you face it? Try it out. This is what a retreat is for, if anything. To try things out by yourself, alone, and yet with other people who are also alone. And yet not other from you, not different from you. We've always, all our life, run away. Maybe not as little children. As little children, we didn't, but then we got burned. We got hurt. We got terribly scared. Maybe scared to death. And then something was shut off. Not to be looked at again, or not to be felt again. And yet, there are emanations from that enclosed chamber. Fear comes up. And the chamber wants to open up. It really wants to open up. You say, well, how do you know that? I don't. But it happens if you're not running away. If you're not defending yourself, protecting yourself in any way. Take refuge in nothing except in openness. I take my refuge in complete vulnerability, complete openness. Is that possible? Leave out the refuge. What is everything? When I don't guard against it, don't defend myself, don't run away, don't know what to do about it. Must be such openness, such readiness to even face dying if needs be. Because no one has been carried out of a sesshin or retreat dead. I've never heard of it. It's not that kind of death. It's dying to refuges and escapes and images of oneself as being this or becoming that. One person said, why am I so scared, so afraid of being nobody? Came from the bottom of her soul, whatever that is. Can you do it without doing it? Without making mu or hu into an escape. It need not be. It can become an escape. But it can be this open questioning, this open mu, not knowing. This who or what is it, not knowing, and right into not knowing, and right out of not knowing. Or attending, without grasping or clutching or expecting anything. Then who is Echo? We will end here for today.